I was surprised to find that the video that's watched the most on my YouTube channel is the one about horses being pushy for treats. It was a short little clip that I did for a friend of mine, so I decided to make a longer and more in-depth version. If you have a horse that's pushy for treats, the first thing I'd suggest is to forget about prey versus predator approach to training and look to the dog training world for some answers. I have a favorite YouTube dog training channel that I subscribe to, Kikopup, K-I-K-O-P-U-P, and she does a wonderful job training dogs and explaining in detail how to do the different procedures. I would strongly suggest going over there and taking a look at her stuff and seeing how you can apply it to a horse. There are two things that I can think of off the top of my head that will give you a real big bang for the buck, so to speak, when dealing with a horse that's pushy over treats. The first one is that, especially if you're clicker training or food reward training, but even if you're not, you should make sure that the horse isn't looking at the food when you're giving it to them. Try to get their attention up to you if you can, or at least looking away from the food. Because if you're clicking and treating when the horse is looking at the food, you're actually rewarding them for paying attention to the food more so than what you're training them to do. And even if you're not clicker training, it's a good idea that even if you're giving hay or grain or so forth, get their attention away from that and at you or something else around them before you give it to them, so that they're not obsessed with the food. I gotta make a fuss to get him to look at the bag. He knows he's not supposed to look at the bag. I can't get him to mug for treats, but you can see how you never give the treat when he's looking at the bag. When he looks away from the bag, click and treat. If he turns his head away too far to begin with, then you can just gradually click him before he gets that far. It doesn't matter to me how far he turns his head away. Oh, he is. He's being a good boy, huh? Granny, you hay. You hay. There you go. Good boy. In that previous example, we had been out all day and just got home, and he wasn't in any mood to play around. He wanted the hay right then. And notice in that situation, I didn't just wait until he turned his head away. I waited until he calmed down. It's very important that the horse be calm when you're giving food. I know there's a lot to think about, but you need to try and think not to give him the food when he's paying attention to the food. Like if he's looking at your treat bag and so forth, you don't want to give him the food then. You want to give it to him when he's doing a wanted behavior. Like he just tried out backing up. That's an appropriate behavior versus trying to mug me for a treat. A lot of pushiness with food is just a boundary issue, and backing up can solve a lot of it. If you teach a horse to consistently back up to a certain spot, then they'll eventually stay at that space and not come in that close to you. He's allowed to come in close as long as he's polite. But if you prefer him to be out farther away, you can teach him that by backing him up to that spot every time he walks up to you and rewarding him. I incorrectly clicked him when he looked at the bag. Good boy. Yeah, that was sneaky, huh? Mommy was talking. Mommy was talking and not paying attention. Mwah. Right, Bubby? He's a good boy. Come here. There you go. It's all a matter of preference how close you want your horse to stand to you, but whatever spot you keep clicking him to back up to, he'll eventually stop at that point. He's trying all different behaviors now. He's trying to look away. Putting my head down means back up. It's helpful to have a cue like that to teach space relationships with a horse, because you can help them out when they're not sure what to do. They're trying all different behaviors. You can go, well, back up might be good. I can read your mind. Boy. Good boy. I'm going to show you a quick video clip from another video that I did showing the end result of this type of training. In this video, I put my head down with my back to him while I'm talking, and I cue him to back up, and he puts his head down and he eats his hay. And notice that there's no treats given. It's a misconception of a lot of people that you give more and more treats when you're doing clicker training. It's quite the reverse. You give a lot of treats in the beginning because you're clicking for the tries and so forth, and you decrease the number of treats as you go on, and the end result is, as you see in this video, that no treats are given once it becomes an automatic response. I can't trust you unless you trust it first. It will only mirror the trust that you give it. And something I find people have a hard time with is putting their back to a horse. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him to come in and give me a kiss. Notice that he backs up after he gives a kiss because he's been trained that he needs to back up after he gives a person a kiss. Give me a kiss. Good boy. Very nice. Very nice. We're in camera, buddy. In this next clip, the horse will appear to many people as if he's mugging. But if you look closely, he's just curious over the banana that I have in my hand. And I wouldn't correct this horse for this. In fact, if I were training this horse and not doing this video, I would click him at that point for the curiosity and for behaving while he's being curious. Because curiosity promotes learning, and that's really what you want in a horse. You want a horse that's quick and easy to learn and enthusiastic about learning. It's really tough to go over such fine little details of training like that in a little YouTube video, but I wanted to throw it out there so that you can see the type of things that you should look for and notice the fine line between when a horse is doing something inappropriate and not doing something inappropriate. Many people would correct a horse in this situation, and what they'd be doing would be discouraging him from being interested in things and start the process of shutting a horse down. In this next clip, you'll see him actually start to mug, and see, if I had clicked him before this, he wouldn't have gotten to the point of mugging. But he got to the point of mugging, and I actually had to use a banana, something of real interest, to get him to mug. But he started to mug for the banana. And notice that I just let him keep doing it. I didn't correct him for it. I just waited until he offered an appropriate behavior, and then I clicked and treated. Notice in this next clip that he actually takes a little nibble of the banana peel, and watch very closely the expression on his face. He's irritated with me because he realizes I'm teasing him with that banana to get him to mug a little bit for the video, and he has the right to be irritated with me because I am teasing him. But even if I weren't teasing him and to get him to do that, if he were to do something like that, or your horse would be doing something like that, you wouldn't correct him for it. You'd just ignore it and wait for him to offer the appropriate response, and then click and treat him for it.
Yeah, that's good there. That's good there.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard trainers say that if you have a horse that's pushy for treats or misbehaving around food, that you never give it from your hand, you put it in a bucket, you put it on the ground. And as a short-term little band-aid, that's a fine thing to do, but that's not a solution. That's actually avoidance behavior on the part of the trainer. And it usually is because the trainer doesn't know what to do to fix that situation. If you avoid fixing the situation and you do that suggestion long term, you can't be around that horse 24/7, and one day somebody's going to be around it with some food and maybe a small child, and the horse is going to do the behavior with them, and maybe they'll lose some fingers. So it's really important that you fix the problem. Don't just put a band-aid on it and walk away and hope that it never happens. Try not to set the bar too high. Try not to expect you or your horse to be too perfect. Accept that you're going to make mistakes. And if you make a mistake or your horse makes a mistake, just move on, and when something positive happens, then reward him for that. Try as much as you can to not say no, stop that, don't do that, or push and pull on your horse to correct them. The more you ignore the negative behavior and pay attention to the positive behavior, the more positive the situation will become. When you're saying no, don't do that, and so forth, or you're pushing and pulling on your horse, you're behaving negatively. And you're responding to a negative behavior from your horse, so it's really a double negative. Watch in these two situations, one where I make a mistake. I click the horse where he's looking at the bag, and I just go on from there. I acknowledge that I made a mistake, and I wait for him to do something else that's positive, and then I click him again. So I ignored my mistake. It's up to you. And rewarding him. I incorrectly clicked him when he looked at the bag. Good boy. Practice it in front of a mirror or a video camera, somewhere where you can look and see what you look like when you're doing it. Quite often, people that are new to training, think they're projecting one thing, but they're projecting something else completely different to the horse. In doing this, you're not only not saying no, don't do this, stop that to your horse, you're also showing them what's acceptable behavior, what you would like them to be doing.
What a nice good boy you are, huh? Behave. Behave. Good boy.
You really need to set the standard of how pushy or not pushy you want a horse to be, how interactive or not interactive you want a horse to be, how close you want it to stand to you, how far away. You need to set your own boundaries, because I would view a horse that's pushy for treats different than someone else. Someone might look at the way my horse interacts with me and say, well, that horse is pushy for treats. Where to me, I allow a certain flexing of the boundaries because I like to encourage curiosity. I don't want a robot horse that just stands there and walks up to me with all 4 feet plugged into the ground and goes, tell me when to blink. I want a horse that's interacting with me. I want to recognize that my horse is a breathing, living individual, and he's not just something that should respond to me just because I say, do that. Helping a horse that's pushy for treats, mugging for treats, is different than what you would do for a horse that's actually food aggressive. Many people don't realize that there's a distinct difference between a horse that's food aggressive and one that's pushy or mugging for treats. A horse that's food aggressive has been abused, malnourished, mistreated in some way, or it's been put in with other animals where it's felt like it has to fight for its next meal or fight for how much it gets to eat. And usually this is done over a period of time. On the other hand, a horse that's pushy for treats or mugging is a horse that has a boundary issue with the person who's giving the treats to them. If you're not sure which you're dealing with, food aggression or a horse that has boundary issues and is pushy for treats, or maybe the horse is just aggressive in general and has nothing to do with the food, make sure you seek professional help. Understand, though, that you're going to probably go through several trainers before you find one that really knows a lot about this topic. So if you come across a trainer that tells you things that just don't feel right to you, don't sound right, then make sure you get a second or third opinion. Make sure you feel comfortable with what the trainer's telling you needs to be done. If you don't feel comfortable with it, there's probably something wrong with it. No matter what you're doing with a horse, always be safe. You need to be safe, the horse needs to be safe. Fear is a mechanism to make sure that you're safe. If you feel fear, you need to back off and stop and figure out what you need to do so that you feel safe before you go back and try it again. I could easily do a 2-hour video on this topic and not repeat myself. It'd be very difficult to jam it all into a small little video. I tried to give you an overview of the things that I think would help you the most, and then I didn't go through the process of actually teaching each of those things. If you find that you want to try one of those things and you're not really clear on how to actually train it, please email me and I'll see what I can do to help you out. My email is chappysmom87@yahoo.com.